Recording? Cool beans. All right, hold on. Start this video off right, all right? Welcome everybody. Chef B here. Making another video with you today. It's been a little while, but thanks for joining me. I'm glad I'm back and hopefully making more videos with you. Today we're going to do something that's more based on expanding your dollar to multiple meals instead of just focusing on one dish. We're not really going to focus on a meal today as much as we're going to focus on a piece of meat that's going to make multiple meals and save you money in the long run, and just showing you different ways that you can use this piece of meat so that gives you some creativity in your cooking, as well as just showing you what you can do with it. We're working with pork. We're working with a pork loin. Meat these days is getting more and more expensive, and it's harder to find better ways of saving your dollars. So I've decided today, being pork, we bought a whole pork loin. I'm going to see how many meals we can make from it. Because if you went to the grocery store and you bought these meals one day at a time individually, I think they'd be more expensive overall. But if you actually bought a whole piece of meat, broke it down yourself, and felt comfortable breaking it down, then you would definitely find ways to stretch your dollar, and then you can use that towards other parts of the meal. Now, I'm going to let you know this piece of meat cost me about $50. So we want to make sure that we get the best value for this dollar and the most out of it. What we'll do is we'll take it out of the package and we'll have a look at it, and we'll break it down into sections, and I'll show you how you can do it very simply. Now, I'm working with the most simple tools because it doesn't matter what knives I have. Not everybody has the same knives I have. Not everybody has the same equipment I have. So I want to work with the most basic equipment because I want to show you that there's ways of doing this without having to spend money on knives or cutting boards or all these things. You just focus on enjoying cooking and using basic ingredients with basic tools. Okay, this is a paring knife. Now, if I was doing this professionally, I'd probably use a boning knife, but I'm just going to work with a paring knife. I don't mind using a paring knife, and if you have a chef knife, then use that as well, okay? And sharp, if you can. Let's open this up and see what we're working with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cloth. I'm going to dry all this excess moisture off so that it's not so slippery to work with. Just with its own water. Okay. So we have a whole piece of meat here, just like that, and I have to use 2 cutting boards because I don't have a big cutting board to work with. Okay, so for a roast, I probably want to use the nice fat piece right there. A steak a roast for about, say, 4 to 6 people. This is a 10-pound piece of meat. So let's say anywhere from 2.5 to 3 pounds. That should be pretty good. So right about there. So what I want to do, I have actual butcher's twine or string that I can use to make a roast. So, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use that for tying this up. I don't want to cinch the rope too much so that it's strangling the meat to death and it looks like a piece of sausage roll. I just want to tighten up the meat so that when it cooks really evenly. And I feel that's probably about a good size, and then I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, so now I have a nice basic roast. So I want to flip it over to the other side and have a look at it, because if you notice, it's got 2 sides here where it was up against the rib cage. So there was actually ribs right there, and you can kind of see where the marks were. And then you have these lines of meat going this way as well. And basically it's up against the spine, and I want to make sure that I can take this piece of meat off, and I'm using my paring knife, and I want to remove this piece of meat, but I'm not going to get rid of it because there's nice marbling, nice fat content in there, and it actually comes off very easily. If you have a sharp knife, hopefully. Just like so, and it's removed. Now I'm not going to get rid of that, I'm going to just hold that off to the side. But I have this silver skin here that doesn't necessarily have a good texture when you're eating it, or it takes a little bit longer to cook down when you're using it. So I might discard this stuff. Nice and clean on one side. Turn it around. Down the other side, you'll see the same line, and I want to remove it as well. Now all this is fantastic meat. None of this is a waste of any kind. I'm going to clean that up and we're going to use it for other things. Maybe stew, maybe stir fry. But what we'll do is we'll get it all cleaned up, we'll cut it up, and we'll just put it in freezer bags and we'll freeze it off until we actually need it. But let's keep working with this loin, making sure it's nice and cleaned. Okay, it's a lot smaller looking now than it was when we first started. So when I look at this, I'm thinking pork chops, okay? Boneless pork chops. At this end, being so fat, I think this would be great for having a few pork chops that are so thick that I could probably stuff them with something. Maybe 3 cheese and spinach. Maybe I want to stuff them with some other pork product like chorizo sausage. Whatever the case may be, but nice thick chops work really well for stuffing and then searing off or throwing on the barbecue and then just enjoying however you want to stuff with whatever you want to stuff them with. All right. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe about 1.5 inches. Well, maybe that's a little too thick, but let's go really quite thick here. Something like that. Or what you would also, if there was a bone attached, that would be like a double chop. Three. Now maybe I want to keep them just that thick and just cook them that way, or the idea of stuffing them sounds pretty good too. If you want to learn how to stuff them, I would just take my boning knife, I would go down one side, and I would go inside it, and I would sort of cut around, and then I would make this little pocket. I would make this little pocket of meat. Okay, and now it's a nice and opening, and then I can stuff that with whatever I want to serve. And I think that's going to be really good dinner, especially if it's going on the barbecue. Stuffed chops on the barbecue, really good. For the rest of this, I'm going to take the top of this fat off. That fat I wanted to keep on there because I want that fat through the cooking process. I like a good amount of fat when it's cooking. If it's going to cook for a certain period of time, that fat will help in the moisture content, help keep it moist while it's cooking as it's basting, and fat is flavor. So I think in certain cooking aspects, it's very important to have fat. Now what I'm doing with the rest of this is I'm removing the top of this fat and also this called silver skin, because this stuff is very rubbery, very sinewy, and almost unedible. It really is chewy unless you cook the living crap out of it. And I don't want to necessarily, because this is nice meat, it's very lean, it doesn't require a lot of cooking time. And if I were to cook it or overcook it too much to make sure I could eat this, the rest of the meat would be very unpleasant. So I want to remove this. And cutting along with it, it just comes off pretty easy, pretty easy. Did I get it all? Yeah, I think that's pretty good. The rest of that is not necessarily silver skin. Okay, so far, this is my waste out of all of it. I would say that's about maybe 5 ounces of stuff. I've got 1, 2, 3 dinners already. This is going to be other things as well. Let's see what else we can make out of this. Let's do thin pork chops, or also known as quick fast fry pork chops. One, 2, 4. All right, there's another 2 meals. Now I've got this tail end of this piece of meat. It's obviously getting a little too narrow to use. So I'm going to use a little bit more for, again, like this, but I'm not going to use it like pork chops or cutlets. I'm probably going to cut them, and what we'll do a little bit later is we're going to pound them out and we're going to make schnitzel with them and bread them. So I want to cut them a little bit thicker because I want to pound them thin. And as the tail is getting smaller, you need to cut them a little bit thicker also. 3, 4, just like that. And we're going to add that to that. Nothing goes to waste. So that's our schnitzels. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not so bad. Have a look at this meat. We have a little bit of trim to get rid of, but overall I think this is pretty much all useful meat. This stuff right here has a lot of marbling and it has some sinew running through it, and it does require a little bit longer cooking time, but that's great for stews and things like that. So we have some cubed meat there, and then again we have the chain left over from when we were cleaning it. So I'm going to remove some of this outside silver skin because that's a bit of waste. Some of it's kind of rubbery or fatty. I just want to clean it up because obviously utilizing all of it is great if you can, all right? But you don't necessarily want your dish to be a dumping ground or a garbage can. So just because you feel the need to use it up, it might not necessarily make the meal very good because you knew you should have just thrown it away. So, or you can render the fat down and use the fat for something. It can all be used necessarily, but not necessarily in all cooking aspects. All right, let's make some more cubes. Oh, let's use our big knife then. Just like that. So from the chain, just the chain on both sides, now we have enough stewing meat to make a whole stew. And we still have this here to go. Again, you see more silver skin. It does take a bit of work, but the efforts that you put in are going to definitely save you money, because if you were to buy these pieces of meat already done up, you just paid somebody to do it for you, and you're trying to save yourself some money. So take the time to learn how to do this stuff because it definitely will help you in the long run. Just saving your dollars and cents, and you get familiar more with the food that you're working with, and you get more comfortable with all the different dishes you're going to turn it into. Maybe it's going to be tacos one night. You know, maybe you're going to grind it up and make ground pork. So if I was going to use this for stir fry, we have all the lines going in one direction here. We want to make sure we're not going to be cutting with the grain to make the meat stringy, especially when we're going to be cutting slices. So I'm just going to cut it in half this way with the grain, and then I'm just going to make strips. If I want, now I can pre-marinate and then freeze it so that it's ready to go when I thaw it. Or I can just freeze it the way it is. And just like that, I have all the meat I need for a stir fry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Oh, let's add that to that too. I almost forgot. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Okay? Right? All right, just like that. We can freeze this off. I definitely believe that in the bigger picture, you're saving yourself a lot of money, and it teaches you a few things. Actually, you know what? Let's not use that for that because I want to actually use that for schnitzel. So let's keep that. How are you guys doing? You guys good? We have a roast. We have some stir-fry meat. Push the air out of that. And we have some stewing meat as well. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And one more to use today. So 8 meals out of that. Not too bad. Divided by 50. I don't do math, but it's kind of something money. And you know what else? I'm off tomorrow. Like, fuck, yeah.